This is the maze. All right, folks, we're gonna bring you on in here. We're gonna place you on the string. We want you to wait there until everybody's in. Now, to find your way around the maze, you're gonna be in here, you're gonna be hanging on to this top string, and you follow it around.
I keep wandering around, trying the same thing, and it's just not working.
I think I'm on the right path, and I just end up right where I started.
I can't see.
You can't see.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do.
When you come to a pole, you'll be following the string. You will come to a pole, and then you'll be waving your arm out here like this, seeing, am I out? You're not out. Go around the pole, grabbing the same string, and then follow it along. By definition, a maze has an entrance and an exit. And I guarantee you, there is a way out.
I've just been walking around in circles.
I've been at it for a while, and I have no idea what the hell's going on.
It makes me more frustrated than ever.
I mean, I'm stuck.
And it's just really fucking frustrating.
There is a way out. I promise there's a way out.
President Obama said that America's addiction to painkillers is as great a threat as terrorism.
I was addicted to pornography since I was 12 years old.
You can also be addicted to your cell phone, and it can have serious effects.
If somebody's going through addiction, they just need to change their scenery.
I have a son who is in prison for drug addiction.
Codependency is that person that enables another person to have their addiction.
I may do things that I think are helping that are actually not helping.
For most of us, shopping isn't a problem.
She found herself buried not just under debt, but piles of expensive clothes and shoes.
To me, addiction kind of translates into having a thing. It could even be experiences that you get addicted to that you have to do all the time just to make yourself feel good.
Codependency to me is you help them with it rather than help them to get away from the addiction.
Addiction is an involuntary insistence and indulgence.
One of those things like racism to me, it can't be completely solved, but there are things that can be done to get people off of whatever they're addicted to.
Parts of America are in the grip of a deadly heroin epidemic.
Millions of Americans are getting their fixes from pharmacies and medicine cabinets at home.
For many years, I paid my son's utilities and took care of my grandson because I knew that he couldn't do it.
It's a sickness. You can't just stop saying, I'm going to stop being sick today just because you want to.
It's right up there with cancer and heart disease.
That's the hardest part, is just to let down the barriers and say, I have a problem.
Spike in heroin overdoses.
Be addicted to sex.
People need to get a digital detox.
Epidemic of prescription painkiller abuse in America.
Caleb, can you say hi to the camera? Say hello.
Hello.
Good boy. Yeah, we're going to the market today, so I thought I'd take y'all along with me. Show them all those people staring at it. These are all the people staring at us right here. They like to watch us. As you can see, we draw quite a crowd when we come to the market.
你好，我叫白勇，我是一个在中国长大的洋鬼子。Hi, my name is Caleb, and I'm a white guy that grew up in China. I was different. I was different than everybody else. 1.3 billion people over there. Not many of them look like me. I was kind of the star of the show for the first few years of my life.
Well, so what you have basically here is a preference for male children and the idea that, the firstborn is the most important. Basically, it brought about this mindset that it's like always all eyes on me, which
At the end of the day, sometimes I hated it, sometimes I loved it, because I could basically, like, what persona do you guys want to see? What do I need to be for y'all so that I get what I want? You know, it made this whole kind of culture of basically everything's an act.
He was blonde hair and blue-eyed, and we were the only foreign family in the area we lived. And naturally, he was an attraction to the local people. That probably created some unhealthy thoughts and situations in his life that later on caused issues. So
it's like being David Copperfield. Like, we just run around on the streets doing whatever we wanted. I was like 7, 8 years old. We're running around doing whatever. We're blowing stuff up with fireworks. I mean, it was awesome.
Caleb is my firstborn, and my first introduction to being a mom. As soon as I held him, I changed, and a desire to protect him was overwhelming. For me to imagine that that baby in my arms was going to someday become an addict was unthinkable.
Addiction.
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 Addiction. Chaos.
Addiction is a disease. Addiction is compulsion.
Devastation.
A misplacement of worship.
Not a choice.
All-consuming.
Craving something that usually isn't good for me.
Addiction is powerlessness.
And usually helps me feel better than how I feel when I don't have a solution.
It's a progressive brain disease.
I know for me, it's materialism. It's overeating.
You can take any 5 people and give them morphine for a week, and those 5 people will be addicted to the chemical in morphine. But you detox those people and you go back into that room and you ask them who wants more morphine. There will be one person who will say, I do. That's addiction.
Addiction. Hell.
Currently, I'm the executive director of a drug and alcohol treatment center in Austin, Texas, and I'm one of 4 on the executive team that runs the treatment center. All right, let's get started. I will start making sure the people are there when they're supposed to be there. Where's John? Tanner, I'll take you. Okay.
Yeah, but she's the third person.
What I'm doing now professionally, I think, is the culmination of my recovery over the last 13 years. I basically spend all of my waking hours trying to create a program that will help somebody have the kind of transformation that I got to have. You know, when I look back now from a very, very young age, I had this sense that I didn't fit in, that I didn't belong. I felt like when God was handing out the instructions to how to be, I must have missed the boat because I always felt like I wasn't quite good enough. It wasn't blonde enough, tan enough, tall enough, pretty enough, whatever it is. And you know, I tried things. I tried being a cheerleader and a party girl, and I tried being the tomboy, and I tried cutting for a little while, and then I thought, well, if I throw up my food, and I don't like to throw up, so that didn't work, and then I started doing drugs, and it was like the lights went on, and something in my soul just settled, and I felt enough.
My addict is my daughter, and I'm her codependent, and I think she's pretty codependent on me.
Codependency.
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 Codependency. Okay, I'm a little confused now. I can't answer that. Let's pass.
Codependency is control.
Codependency at its core is selfishness and self-centeredness.
Someone who is dependent on others for their own well-being.
Getting your value from what other people think of you.
Colorfully disguised prisoner.
Being more of a human doing than a human being.
Butting in where you don't belong. Codependent. Myself. My son.
My mom. Just kidding. Also me.
The behaviors are very similar to the person struggling with addiction. It's just not obvious. You don't get a DUI for being codependent. But the codependent is driven by their desire to do, to say, to act certain ways So that person in their life won't succumb to their addiction. They obsess over it, similar to how we obsess over the next drink.
Or the addict is addicted to drugs. I am addicted to the addict.
Codependency feeds me. Love feeds you.
Codependency. In hell with someone.
Well, I think I was like all parents. I was going to be the best mother ever. Certainly would never make the mistakes my parents made. I suppose there was quite a bit of denial. And then there's a little niggling. Something's not right. And you don't know what it is that's not right.
So I fished off of these rocks that I'm sitting on back when I was 13 or 14. This is one of the few places where I feel like I can sit and the background noise of life just fades away. I could be alone here and be okay, which was rarely the case. I mean, I hate myself on a regular basis. And I was not okay in my own skin. And so I'm gonna find a way to be okay, hell or high water. And if that looks like sitting alone on the beach by myself just drinking, I'll do that. At the ripe age of 12, I found instant relief from feeling the way that I felt. It's customary to let kids, have a glass of wine, is Chinese rice wine. And so the second that the effects of that drink started to take a hold of me, I knew I'd arrived, that this was it. This made everything okay.
It was like this ready-made identity I could just put on. I didn't know how to be Casey the cheerleader, or Casey the daughter, or Casey the friend, or Casey the girlfriend, but I knew how to be Casey the junkie. I knew how to be Casey the stoner. I could walk into a room and have everyone stop and turn and look at me and be like, Casey is here. And I had friends, and I had excitement, and I had an identity. For the first time.
Every time I would smoke weed or sell weed, that I just got a sense of just rush, like feeling like I was in control, and then people needed me for drugs. Once I found heroin, it was like finding like a first love. Like that became my number one thing. It's just that sense of just ease and comfort.
When we discovered that Frankie was addicted to opiates, heroin, we really thought at that point that if we just isolated Frankie and had him on house arrest, that he would rehabilitate himself. So for an entire year, I literally stayed at home with Frankie and policed him.
When I was younger, I felt this weird sense of discomfort. But that minute I took that sip of that Arbor Mist, I felt absolutely light. I felt like something that actually loved me. I felt like I'd probably started to love myself. And that's really what I wanted.
My firstborn called us and said that he had a problem with alcohol and he was checking himself into a clinic. He went through the program, he came out, and he mentioned to me, he said, Dad, I think it'd be helpful if you actually worked the 12 steps. And I was, quite frankly, I was a little offended in the fact that I thought, hey, pal, I'm not the addict. You are. So you do your little steps and let's just move on through this in life. Because, quite frankly, I don't like it, and I don't want to be here.
Christy was a mama's girl. She was always fun-loving. She loved to have a good time. She was probably the typical caboose on the train of 4 kids, I would say. Christy's bout with addiction totally changed the way I looked at addiction, for one thing. Well, personally, the first thing I felt when I heard it, I felt embarrassed, okay? I thought, man, this can't be happening to me. You know, I've supposedly done all the right things, you know, and Christy called it a disease, and I thought that was kind of a cop-out at first, but it's really not.
Went to high school and I had a sling on, and a bunch of older guys asked me, hey, did you get painkillers for that? And I said, yeah. And they said, can we have some? And I remember thinking, at this point I had smoked pot and drank, and I was like, oh, hold on, let me see what this is all about. I mean, I could play sports more. I didn't get tired. I felt invincible. It was a solution to everything I was looking for. No joke. It made me feel better.
I had this perfect family. I had a son and a daughter, and we had everything materialistically that anybody could ever want. So when addiction crept into my home, I didn't know what to do. I fought very hard to keep that secret. And again, I thought that I could fix it, that I could take care of it. And I tried really hard to do that. I thought I could fix it with love, giving to my son and buying him a new car and constantly sending him money, helping him. I basically was funding his addiction.
Okay, let's go.
The friendships that I did make, the guys that like just really reached out to me and didn't see me as the firstborn white child that spoke Chinese, what it did was it created strong relationships. Even though that, yes, we were all just drinking ourselves to death. It was crazy how much we were drinking. But at the end of the day, this is one of the few places, on earth where I feel like I have genuine connection with people who know me for who I am and just care about me anyways. Because they've seen me at my trashiest. And, I'm excited to eat with these guys tonight because it's like we've kind of gone through life together.
Man, we did a lot of partying together, we did a lot of hanging out, we did a lot of drinking, but there's something different between these guys and me is that when they were given sufficient reason to stop drinking, for whatever reason it was, they were able to say, hey, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's what kind of separates us. I'm an alcoholic, they're not. So like last time I came here, they all just opted to not drink just because I was in town. Just to make me feel welcome, which was really cool.
I was on the worship team, and so it goes back to the idea of who do you need me to be, and who do I need to be for me to kind of live life the way I want to, and if that looks like me on a guitar, leading praise and worship while, still halfway rolling on ecstasy or drunk or hungover, I mean, I'll do that if it ensures that, you stay off my back and I kind of get to do what I want to do.
The insanity of my addiction was that for a time, there really was this few months where everything clicked. But then it slowly started to kind of fade and nod, and more painful situations would happen. And, it wasn't just, oh, I'm the life of the party, but now it's waking up in the morning going, where are my clothes? Where are my friends? And that was what was so crazy, is because my mind wants to take me back to being 15 years old, smoking pot and dancing at a Bob Marley festival, but the reality was doing cocaine by myself for 12 hours at a time.
As your attorney, I'm going to explain something to you. I have been very patient when we've been talking back and forth about your case. You're going to have to follow my lead so the court can make a decision. You're going to have to follow my lead. I am an attorney by training. You look at a problem, you research it, you find out what to do, and you fix it. I was really big on rescuing. I remember one time I scooped in driving my Lexus and not only took my little addict, which I didn't know at the time, away from the grasp of the police, who were just almost had their hands on them, but all of our friends who had also apparently been using that night. I mean, these are all the things that a codependent person does. Let me manage your life. Let me break it down into small pieces. Somewhere I got in my head that a good mom doesn't let these things happen to her child. So you have that part where you're in your head and you're saying, if only I had done this, if only I had done that. Or, you know, you always get into the blame games. And you can't just kick them out of the house, and you can't, what do? Because in the back of my head, it was always screaming, she's gonna die, she's gonna die.
Control. That's a myth. That idea that if you just do the right thing, say all the right things and guide them, then they're not going to make those bad decisions. And if they do make those bad decisions, that's because you just weren't good enough as a mom. And that was very much an awakening for me to see how little control I actually had over who he was and what he thought and what he wanted to do.
I hated my parents more than anything else, except for God. I hated him the most because he was responsible for everything that I felt. They tried. They wanted to help. They moved me around. They took me in and out of different schools. They subsidized my existence.
You want to tell a parent to step back, and in their mind, you're asking them to not love their kid anymore. There's this notion that if the codependent just tries hard enough, they're going to fix the addict in their family. They'll finally see the truth of their actions, and they'll go, oh, okay, I don't need to do this anymore because, you know, mom or dad or whoever pled such a good case. And so the same insanity's there.
Caleb and I actually met in China. We were both going to high school over there. So we met through mutual friends. And let me tell you, the first time I met him, I was like, that guy looks like an asshole. He moved back to Arkansas. He graduated a year before I did, again, separate sides of the country. And I decided to move to Arkansas too. We were in the throes of this experience the world for the first time kind of thing. So we got married at a hippie festival called Schwagstock in Missouri. Yeah, still married.
I came back to the US and I failed out of the first semester of college. And basically I figured out that if you buy drugs wholesale and sell them retail, you make a profit, and that profit allows you to do whatever you want to do, including more drugs and more drinking and paying for rent.
Caleb had gone dark on us with communication, and we knew something was wrong. So I got on a plane and went back by myself. His face was sunken in, and me being obviously on drugs, it really hit me like he was in a real bad place, and I really couldn't do anything about it. And I drove down to a park, soccer field, and sat in my truck, and I cried, and I asked God for help.
I certainly was codependent on him in every way, shape, or form. I was not okay unless I knew that he was okay. It was like it was my nature to take care of him and to make sure that he had whatever he wanted. Like, I could not say no to the man, even if I knew what he was doing was hurting him. I knew he was going to do amazing things one day. And being with him over time was just like watching that light go out.
When you're an addict, a street addict for over 20 years, I don't know if you know what that means. I don't know if you know what that means in the ghetto of a major city. And your mental illness, and you're talking out of your head. And not all the time you have shoes on. And with your family, and when your mother tells you, son, I hate to see you coming. Oh my God, I woke up behind the dumpster many, many nights. Hungry, scared, and I could not stop. My wife would change jobs. We would move. She would hide what was going on with me. She would support me with money. or whatever, but she was addicted to me.
One of the biggest factors, negative impacts for me personally when I relapse is shame. I've failed again, consequences that are coming, wondering why it happened again, and just feeling so unworthy of anything in life anymore.
I would pass out on my floor, and the first thing I'd do in the morning is wake up and look for the foil, the pen, the pills, because I was snorting it, smoking it, shooting it, whatever.
I was texting Mike, texting him, leaving him voicemails. What are you doing? You have everyone so worried. Why are you doing this to us? You have this great life. You've got parents that love you, and this is what you're doing. You have everyone so upset. Everyone's looking for you. Call me. Damn it, why aren't you calling me back? I was out of my mind with anger.
Certain things started disappearing, and if money disappeared, then it just fit a pattern that, I'd heard about. And the thing I really noticed most of all is, if the phone would ring late at night, I'd say, oh my goodness, what now? And that to me was almost, it was kind of a living hell, because you never knew what was going to happen, and so finally, we confronted her, and she asked for help.
The addiction of our son has been the unraveling of my life. It has caused me to totally think about all the ways that I have survived, things that I need to work on, things that I've never been willing to look at before. That now, with our son's addiction, I had to face them.
Through my frustration with Frankie, I would demean him. I would say things like, I'm so ashamed of you because you're an addict. I'm so ashamed that you are doing this. I'm ashamed that you keep choosing drugs over your family that loves you and wants to take care of you.
I would wake up crying, go to sleep crying, going into treatment crying, not knowing, man, why did God create me this way? Why did I deserve a life like this? Why am I, out of all my friends, the one who's in treatment addicted to heroin? It never made sense to me. I did not want to be alive anymore, and I just felt like God just made somebody super screwed up and wanted me to be punished.
Watching my boy leave the house and not know whether I would see him again, whether I would find him in a morgue, whether he would be arrested, or whether I would ever see him alive, was absolutely heartbreaking. It is so, so painful, but this is what they choose.
It's a cycle. Addiction is based in a cycle, and the cycle just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And my state, without anything in me, is restless, irritable, discontent. Then I would use, and I would feel good. I don't know if it's the way our brain is structured or what, but man, something clicks, and it's the best feeling you've ever had in your entire life.
You have this allergy, and the allergy happens when you start to ingest the booze or the chemicals. It's not like the allergy of strawberries or peanuts where your throat closes up. It's like just the opposite. Your throat opens up and wants more.
I was never able to use just a little. I always struggled with, okay, I'll just use on the weekends. I'll just use at parties. That just wasn't me. And when I started, within a year, I was using every day, all day long. And so when you use that way, there are consequences. You know, you get in trouble with the law, you lose friends. And so those consequences are painful and I didn't want them. And so I would tell myself, okay, I've got to stop. I'm going to stop. And I would make these promises and these resolutions about how I was going to change. And then I would, for a period of time, feel a little bit better because the consequences weren't happening. But the problem was that eventually, without a drug or a substance, I would eventually go back to that natural state of restless, irritable discontent. And I had this mental obsession. It was like the memory of how amazing it was to be high always outshone the memory of how painful it was or how I said I was never going to do it again. And I would begin to kind of concoct these ways I was going to make it be different this time. It was not, I'm going to use, but I'm not going to get those same consequences, and I would use. I would tell myself it's just going to be a little, it's just going to be at this time, and I would just blow it like within a day, and I'd be totally out of control. And so then it would get painful, and I would say, well, I don't want to do this anymore, and I would make a resolution, and I would make a promise, and I would stop. And then my old problem of how I felt would come back, and I would do it again.
The cycle of addiction and codependency, it's two sides of the same coin. You have the addict, which I am one, and you have the codependent. The codependent gets addicted to the addict. Codependent solution is getting in there and fixing this alcoholic. And they get in there and they have to be around them all the time. And the allergy or the craving becomes the person, the loved one, that they're getting in there trying to fix or rescue. And they tell themselves, okay, if I just love them harder, and that becomes the addiction. And then that addict spits in their face and they go, okay, I'm not gonna do this again. I'm not gonna get back into this whole behavior. I'm not gonna rescue them. And they really mean it. Just like the addict says, I'm not gonna get drunk or high again. I'm not gonna get in there and rescue them again or fix them. Then they come over here and they become restless, irritable, discontented also. They become restless. They might not have heard from their loved one. So they get in there and they try to fix it again. And so right there, that mental obsession is, well, I gotta get in there. Oh, you know, he's doing so well. He has 11 months of sobriety now. I can get in there and I can buy him this or do this for him. And that mental obsession gets in there and up, they're back into trying to control the whole situation. And boom, we're back to the races again.
Willpower alone is not going to cut it. And there's this notion that if I just want it bad enough, it won't happen. After a certain point, I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to keep on doing the things I was doing. But I couldn't stop. I got to pass the lie detector test on the amount of times I said I don't want to drink again. They're perpetuating a cycle in which the addict is never truly understood, and he's never actually helped. Because a lot of times, for me, I had to kick my own ass. So if I'm not allowed to kick my own ass and there's all these safety cushions that keeps happening, it's actually the cruelest thing that you can allow me to do in the long run is to continue what I've been doing just in a slightly different way. It's cruel. I swore I was gonna stop drinking. I swore it. All my life, I swore it. Tears in my eyes to my wife, I would never drink again. And 2 weeks after that, I was so drunk that I put 17 bullet holes in the ceiling in a screaming match.
He grabbed my gun and put the gun to his head and begged me to pull the trigger. And I just sat there and just stared at him. I did not know what to do.
finally you just have to get down to what this is a problem. And I didn't have enough information to fix it. And I didn't have the skills to fix it. Once I knew what the problem was, then I went on the mission to find who could help me. She, of course, tried to run. She's strong-willed. She tried to run. We ran her down and got her in the car. Once she got there, she didn't do well.
My parents put me into treatment, and I was there for months and months and months. No drugs, no friends, no music, no TV. Literally anything that I had been using to feel good about myself, they took away. And it just wasn't getting better. Like the idea that if I could stop using, life will be great was just shattered. And it had been months without a drink or a drug, and I fucking hated myself. And you know, I was sober enough to understand like, oh, let's just like, if I chart the trend of like, everything sucks, and if I continue to use, everything's gonna continue to suck, and I'm eventually gonna die and not get anything I want in life. Like, I'm not stupid, I understood that. And what would happen is that, full well understanding that, I would lay in my bed at night and I couldn't not want to get high. Unless something changed in me, I was just gonna go back and do it all over again, no matter what the consequences were.
I wrote a letter and I sent it to my family and also to Caleb. Caleb, we love and care for you very much. You have to admit that you need help, want help, and are willing to receive help. You have to want to change. You have to walk away from your lifestyle choice. It's your choice, freedom or slavery. Let your mom and dad know when you're ready. Then I wrote to my family, if Caleb contacts you, you can't talk him into anything. He's a fool, and fools don't have ears to hear. We can't fix him, nor fix things for him. I love and appreciate all of you so much. You're the best family a guy could ever wish for. Kirk.
I woke up in this rehab and I didn't remember signing myself in. So I wanted to break out and they wouldn't let me. And so I called up my mom and I said, if you do not get me out of here tonight, I'm going to kill myself.
I just told him, Caleb, you know, if you make that choice to kill yourself, I will be sad for the rest of my life that you made that choice. It will affect me forever, but it will be your choice, and it will not be my fault. You will make that choice, and I will have to go on with my life.
And it was like, that took all the wind out of my sails. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like she let me go. That was courage. That was courage.
I could not live my whole life in constant fear that he was going to kill himself and try to juggle every circumstance and manipulate every event to keep him from doing the worst thing. Because ultimately I didn't have that control. And he was going to do what he wanted to do.
You could have money for fucking groceries right now. You could have money for weed. Stop fucking doing this shit and get on it, okay? Get some money so you have money so you can do fun things for once. Go to shows, get new clothes, take people out to dinner, clean yourself up, get your mother a gift. Not always have to have her stressing out about stuff, you know? Like, you owe it to yourself. Like school, whatever. You know how to get through it. See what you can do. Withdrawal type thing, maybe. If you talk to people, they'll help me out. Hopefully. I love you. Get your shit, all right? And I love you. Bye.
I actually didn't hear it for 2 years. And I was just walking, listening to music, and it started playing, and I was like, fuck, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And then suddenly I realize it's me, and it's just like shame. I apparently left that message for myself to hopefully maybe hear the next day and, like tell myself to stop. The person I saw in my mind leaving that message for me that I thought it was, I hated, and then realized that it was actually me. And I hated that guy.
I don't tell a lot of people that I got high when I got to Texas, but I did. We bought a home, and we were rolling, and it just looked like, things were gonna be so great, and it was almost like, here we go again. And she was like, oh no, we're not gonna do this. I think the clincher was, Karen said, you can't come back in this house, and you're not gonna get the keys to, you just need to stay out. And she had said that so many times, but it was the last time. For me, it was betrayal, actually. But I get it. I get it now. I get it now. But then it was an affront on my supposed manhood. She never stopped loving me. But she understood that she had to love herself and allow me to love myself.
I really sat there and thought about, what am I doing in this relationship? And I realized that I was just enabling. I didn't know what that word meant, and I realized that I was just enabling. But I didn't really do anything about it until I left. I drew a line in the sand, and once it was crossed, I left. And once I was away from it for about 6 months, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I put up with that shit? Hell no! I will never do that again. And that's when the full gravity of it hit me, but it wasn't until after I was separated from the situation.
Eventually, I just disappeared altogether. She moved to California, and I made a commitment that I was going to party harder than I ever had, and that on June 3rd of 2012, I was going to go out into the woods where I had been growing weed, and I already had holes dug, and I was going to put a bullet in my head because I was done with it. I disappeared, and I started running across the country, doing what I was doing. I mean, I got busted 3 times in a row, and the 3rd time was a very large felony charge. It was everyone else's fault.
I thought, that's it. There is no hope. It's like a death of a vision. I could not be somebody's perfect mom. I was either going to crawl in a hole and bury myself in sadness and grief at how bad a mom I had been, or I was going to see us as 2 people, and I was going to listen and believe that my life is not dependent on me looking good enough to a watching world.
So after leaving jail, I didn't have enough money to re-up on drugs to do any more dealing. So I just sat in a burnt out meth trailer in Arkansas drinking warm beer to ward off the shakes. And then I realized, like, hey, I can sit in my grandma's house and drink, like, on the couch. It's better than this, and at least I'll get to kind of see my family, And so I did. I sat there and drank for about 3 weeks, and I just started getting tired.
They told me, point blank, unless you can find a way to have a relationship with a God of your understanding, you are not gonna get better. And I just hated that because I had gone to Catholic school. I was really prejudiced against religion. They gave us some handouts about about recovery, and I like went through and crossed out God every time it appeared because I just didn't like it. And I had tried everything to not be egotistical. I had tried everything to not be afraid. I had tried everything to make therapeutic progress. I had tried everything to try and have a higher self-esteem, and nothing was working. I was getting worse. And I finally just said, you know, God, if you're real, you've got to do something. Because there is nothing in me that is going to make this happen. What I needed when I was drowning in addiction was for me to feel lovable. And so even if you were to say to me, Casey, I love you, you know, it would just hit the ego and bounce right off, because I would tell myself, well, if you only knew.
Wondering where I might begin. Hear her voice on the wind. She's singing faint, but singing true. Son, there ain't nothing you can do. But listen close and follow me. I'll take you where you're meant to be. Just don't lose faith. So I put my hand upon the plow, wipe the sweat up from my brow, plant the good seed along the way as I look forward to the day when at last I'll see my Father run to me, singing, oh my child, come on home. Hold me and I will hold you in my arms, and joyfully there will always be a place for you at my table. Return to me, my child. There will always be a place for you at my table. At my table. Return to me.
I would define love as wanting the best for someone and being willing to do anything it takes to get that. And the interesting thing about that definition is, you know, that could be the definition of codependency, wanting the best for anyone and willing to go to any lengths to make that happen. I think what's missing from codependency that makes it not love is truth. When you can help someone see, you know, when I saw that what I was doing for someone that I loved was in fact hurting them, then I could make a decision to do something different.
It wasn't just stuff that I could do or had to do in order to help my child not be an addict. I had to also look at myself and change some things so that I wasn't a conspirator in addiction. And it wasn't until I got to that point that I could see that I was a factor in the problem. When you see that all the things as a parent you were doing to help your child, and in fact you were just, you were like an accomplice to a crime, it's pretty devastating. It still hurts.
I've always felt like I can make life work. I can make our kids perform. And I think the addiction just has brought to surface how I have no control. I truly don't have control.
I was in my living room. My babies were in the other room sleeping. And the thought in my head was, when my wife comes home, I'll tie her up and I'll kill myself in front of her. And then she'll know how bad I hurt. And I said, oh my God, what's wrong with you? I remember saying, John, you need to go to therapy and you need to start today. And I called a therapist and started going to therapy because I knew I was fucking crazy.
I robbed all of my roommates. I got in a bad fight and ended up just going in a Motel 6 with a bunch of Oxycontin and just wanting to, just saying, man, I'm either got to die right now or I don't know.
I got the call when I was at the grocery store that Mike was missing. My daughter called. I got to my house, and a girlfriend that had been staying with me, she took my hand and stopped me, and she said, listen, you have to reach out to your son with love. You don't know where he is right now. You have to reach out with love. And I said, fuck him. Reach out with love. I've been loving my son for so long. But I listened to her. I finally accepted guidance from someone. And I texted Mike and I said, I want to know that you're okay, Mike. I love you. I'm here for you.
I just was like, wow, this lady still cares about me. So I called, said, this is it. I want to do this. And I was picked up and I was brought home and I had 5 days until I went to rehab and I still used up until the time I went to rehab, the day that I went in. I could not stop.
I went to treatment on a cow farm, a goat farm. It was in the middle of nowhere, and I would sit on this little bench and I would look at the sunrise and I would watch the sunrise and I would say, all right, I guess the sun's bigger than me, and that maybe, possibly there's something bigger than me. There has to be, or I'm fucked. And I did that for months and months and months. And then eventually I would just, it kind of transformed, and I would feel like there was a real personality there, like there was a being there in the mornings that would just meet with me. And this idea of God that I had always had as just waiting for me to step out of line or being judgmental, or like that wasn't who I met out there. Like whatever was happening out there, it was like this higher power would come and sit with me. And I would cry and I would rage and I would scream. And he would just sit with me. Like, comfort me. It just became real to me. Over 18 months of seeking and trying, it went from this nondescript, maybe there's a power of the universe, to this very personal God that was making me lovable. And it completely changed me. I just wasn't the same person anymore.
I was sitting on the back porch at my grandma's house, and I'd long since stopped talking about anything having to do with God or anything like that because I hated him, especially with my dad. But my dad was sitting outside and he had this peace about him, and I wanted to know how he could have peace. My life was like a shit show. And for the first time in forever, he actually, started talking about God. And for the first time in forever, I was okay with listening. And he related, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That rest he was talking about was all I ever wanted. I needed that peace, that hope that there could be something, that serenity, whatever it is you want to call it, that there was an end to the insanity.
I said, Caleb, I'm no better of a man than you. I never have thought that. I have issues in my own life. I'm not talking to you as one who's got it down and knows it all. You have to drive a stake in the ground and say, I'm finished. I don't want to do this anymore, but I can't break this habit, this addiction. I can't stop doing what I'm doing on my own. I need help. You have to decide that.
Then holding on to a very large beer, I looked up at the night sky on the back porch of my grandma's house. Something inside of me broke. And I knew from then on, I didn't care if I was in jail. I didn't care what the rest of my history looked like. I didn't want to be the one in control anymore. That's how it all started.
I get why people want to roll their eyes at God, you know? When I turned 16 and I came out of the closet, my dad told me that, I'm going straight to hell, you know? I did not want anything to do with God, and God was not what I wanted to look for when I got sober. I just wanted to get sober. But there was a price to pay, and I was willing, and I was beaten up enough, and that's all I needed. And now I believe.
Right before I'm about to start detoxing, I just thought I had my last beer. I was like, here we go. There's a phone call. There's a phone call, and there's this little gravelly voice on the other end of the line, and he goes, hey, don't let that kid stop drinking. He said, don't let the kid stop drinking. He said, that kid needs to drink. He's got to medically detox. You buy him all the booze he wants tonight until we get him tomorrow. And in that moment, I knew that there was someone out there who understood what my problem was. That my problem actually wasn't the booze. That I had a problem in here that I was trying to cover up with the booze. And I walked out of detox, a free man, free from the booze, but also, man, free in my heart on June 3rd, the day that I had picked, almost a year ago, that I was going to kill myself. Well, I obviously love tattoos, but the reason I chose a phoenix is, despite it being a mythological creature, the story behind it basically is, a phoenix, as it gets older, it dies and goes up in a burst of flame, but then it rises again from its own ashes. And basically, it's a story of new life, which is why I'm choosing that, And also, man, because Jesus died and rose again. That is just fucking badass.
Even though I believed in God, I was still stuck in this pattern of like, anytime I would do something selfish or, quote unquote wrong, I would like hurry up and go do something good to like balance it out. Like I would go do service work, I would go do volunteer work, I would go try to help somebody in their addiction. And this idea that I always felt like I had to balance it out. And it was like this voice came over me that was like, this is the point of Jesus. You don't have to even it out. It's been evened out. I truly believe that it is my relationship with God that has turned me into the kind of person who weeps for 16-year-old me and doesn't even really understand how we could have ever been the same person. Wouldn't want to be anyone other than who I am. And that is a far cry from how I felt when I was younger.
There was hope brought back. There was hope brought back. The last couple of years of our marriage were pretty cool. Well, she had a brain aneurysm, She had a brain aneurysm and kind of died suddenly. But what Karen was is all my life, Karen was my rock, man. I don't care how bad I screwed up. I don't care how bad. She was there.
So, hey, you missed that class, huh? Yeah, I missed that one. I got the wig on no walk.
I had to have this to replace my addiction. I had to start this to live. I got 50, 55 guys, hardened criminals. And I think my gift to lead them comes from my past and what I've been through. It's the obsession that's exactly the same. I'm obsessed with what God has done for me. And that's how an addict is. An addict wakes up and you gotta get a wake up, another hit in order to keep, and I drink Folgers now, but it's almost the same. If you ever seen a guy come in and God restore him, oh my God, that's crazy. I love that.
This meeting is about how do we create a process where someone can be transformed. And the reality is that there's kind of this balancing act between how can we create the best environment possible and without actually trying to control things that we actually know we have no control over. Right. But the thing that I hate is, like, I feel like we really easily get into this mentality of, like, we're treating adolescents. Like, well, now you have to give your phone back. Our job is not to force them to be healthier than they're willing or able to be at that moment.
So where's the line between them and acting out in treatment?
You can act out in treatment if you want to.
I'm hearing y'all on the verge of dancing with codependency.
Oh, it's every day. Every day.
And so on the one hand, it's like all of us struggle with, like, I just want to kneecap them and drag them through the process.
I'm going to make them get it.
Because I want so badly for someone to know and taste what I have.
It's so hard when you work in this field and you see people die. And it happens a lot. It's hard to not get into that desperation of, I've got to make them get it. You know, and that's where my personal codependency struggle comes from sometimes. It's just that knowing the outcome and knowing the truth is that none of us really have a lot of control over this.
I'll never forget that when I got that phone call that day at the office, and a lady told me they'd found Christy, and she was in the bathtub and she wasn't breathing, and I just said, "Is she alive?" And they said, "Well, the coroner's on the way out." And I just said, "Oh no." And I'll never forget, it was a feeling of, I mean, it wasn't, I'd been praying for, a few years for Christy every morning when I'd run, and I felt in a way like I was throwing my prayers against a wall, because nothing, she would relapse and nothing seemed to change. And then when I got that phone call that morning, it was obviously not the way I wanted the prayer to be answered, but it was almost a release. And I just realized that she was to the point in her life where she was coming to the fork in the road, and that she was either going to get better or something was going to happen. The hard thing has been since then just what might have been, and that's the hard thing. I've still got a picture on my phone when I open it first thing. That's the first thing I see is Christy. I really don't know what Susie and I could have done differently. I mean, could we have done things differently? I'm sure we could have. But I don't live in guilt. If I played woulda, coulda, shoulda, I'd never live. I never would be able to live. I finally, the only way I could cope and live truly was to give her up to the Lord. And realizing that they're not ours. They're not ours. They're His.
I just wasn't mad at Caleb anymore. Like, I had no judgment. I had no anger towards him at all. I just wanted to see how he was doing. So I came out here and checked it out. And after a couple of months, I moved from California to out here. We decided to try and work it out.
Oh, Daniel said, it'd probably be good for 75 because he's covering like half of my shit.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you'd have told me I was gonna be working on a counseling degree 4 years ago, I'd have been like, I mean, I'm laughing at what my reaction would have been then. The hardest part of it is when you can see yourself in another person and they willfully and wholeheartedly think that they have things together or are gonna go do what they wanna do, and watching them just wholesale sign off on their plan of action of how things are gonna go, and you've been there before. You're watching a slow motion train wreck, and that's tough. It's tough watching people destroy themselves.
I have a great, loving relationship with my daughter. But I had to let her be an adult before I could have that. And she's a remarkable person. And here's the ironic thing. She's a remarkable person because of her addiction, not despite it.
Next month, Karen would be dead 7 years. I think if I had Karen now, oh my God, I could be rolling. I just tell her, man, you're not gonna. Ooh-wee. She wouldn't believe what God has done. She wouldn't believe, like I see everybody, I see all the guys praising and worshiping, and I see the lives that have been changed. And I'd be like, can you believe this?
Okay, you'll hold Amy? Can you hold her?
Gentle.
Be gentle, okay. Oh, Caleb loves Amy.
It is a miracle that Caleb isn't dead. And it is a miracle that he walked away from that life. I never thought I'd see that. I think that my story of Caleb is a story of Jesus just breaking me of what I put my hope in. My life isn't valuable because my kids are doing well. That's not what my life's about. My life is about Jesus who had mercy on me, period.
At times, it's difficult for me. I feel at times like I need to tiptoe around my son, but I don't think that he ever would have become who he is now if he hadn't gone through what he's gone through.
The codependent gene's gone, but the mother's gene will always be there.
I'm pretty sure they're the same thing.
No, they're not, honey. They're not.
I'm pretty sure they're pretty much the same thing.
Did you actually mean that?
No. For whatever, I was making a joke, but for what you were saying, I don't know exactly what you meant.
I mean, you know, I know sometimes you just don't answer because you don't want to talk to me.
Probably.
Nice. You could have lied.
I don't know. I think the right thing was to be honest. Sure. Sometimes I don't answer the phone because I'm tired and I don't want to answer the phone and get in a conversation with somebody.
Okay.
And sometimes that person is you.
Well, then that's it. I'm not paying your cell phone bill anymore. How's that for the codependent mom? I'm only kidding.
Yeah, that's just what it is.
I'm an idiot. Don't, my makeup.
That's the codependent right there.
Oh, that's just a rip. Let me go buy you a new one, honey. I don't want you to be cold. Go ahead, Mom. Fix your shirt.
If you'd asked me when I was here back in the day, like, no, I don't need help. That's stupid. I mean, I'm good. I got this thing. Because it was fun. Alcohol worked then. And so the seeds that were sown here led to years and years of doing that, to the point that there are disastrous results. And basically, all of that had to happen before I was ready to say I need help.
Asking it's where recovery begins, because that desire has to come from within. And if someone's coming at me and trying to make me do something differently or change in any way, I'm going to be resistant just because I'm human. But if I'm in a position where I see something and it's not being forced upon me, but it looks attractive and it looks like something that I want, and I don't know how to get there, eventually I'm going to ask. The most frustrating thing about that is that you can't force someone to come to the end of themselves. That moment can't be fabricated. It has to be a surrender and a cry out. I never have the whole plan, and I can never actually make someone have an experience or surrender or ask for help, but I can do what I think is right and create the conditions and love them enough that when they want to ask for help, they feel like they can come to me.
You have to want help first before you ask. I wanted to stop using more than living. I have to want life. I have to want to stop using more than anything else. Then I have to ask for help. But you gotta have help. Oh yeah.
There is a way out. I promise there is a way out.
I keep just getting stuck and going to the same spots, it seems like.
It's just going around and around and around and around.
I think I have tried everything that I know to try.
You finding your way out?
Not at all. Even if I turn around, I feel like I'll just be retracing my steps.
Well, what about getting sober? Were you able to find a way to do that?
No.
No. So how are you going to continue on in your recovery?
I need help.
Are you finding your way out?
No.
No? Are you powerless?
Yes.
Can you do it then?
No.
What's the next thing you should try?
Asking for help.
That would be good.
Will you help me?
Sure. Are you finding your way out?
God, no.
You're not?
No. No, I'm pretty lost right now.
Are you actually getting anywhere?
No, no.
You're not?
I'm just going in circles, man.
So you can't find your way?
No.
So what do you have to do if you can't accomplish something on your own?
Maybe ask for help?
That is an option.
Will you help me? Maybe?
follow the day. Follow the day and reach for the sun. You don't see me flying to the red one more your blood. Just follow the seasons and find the time. Reach for the bright side. You don't see me flying to the red one more your blood. Just follow the day. Follow the day and reach for the sun. Just follow the day. Follow the day and reach for the sun. You don't see me flying to the red one more your love. Just follow the seasons and find the time. Reach for the bright side. You don't see me flying to the red one more your love. Just follow the day. Follow the day and reach for the sun. Just follow the day. Follow the day and reach for the sun. Just follow the day. Follow the day and reach for the sun.
Can we talk? I know, it can be embarrassing when you're having problems dealing with, well, control. It wasn't long ago I was suffering from the shame and humiliation of control problems myself. Now I have Fix-A-Hall, and once again, I can manage life. Anyone's life. Fix-A-Hall is so easy to swallow. It puts you in control of friends, family, virtually any situation. Using Fix-A-Hall was the only change I needed to make to change everyone else. Now that everyone does what I want, everyone's happy. Regaining control is wonderful and simple. Be good to yourself and your family and friends. Fix them all with Fix-A-Hall.
Now available in extra strength for those hard-to-reach pill problems. Side effects include delusions of grandeur, sleepless nights, and loss of intimacy. Those you influence by using Fix-A-Hall may become listless and experience lack of willpower and wait for you to make every freaking decision and tell them how they're supposed to act and how to feel. If you experience feelings of isolation, discontinue use and don't be too damn surprised. If you have a connection lasting more than 4 hours, be grateful and don't worry. It will likely never happen again.